That's your boy Gooch.
And as always, that is the homie Keys.
And this is the RogueHead Huddle presented by RGR Football. And we're going to have a special guest today. And that is someone that we have bribed to come on the show. We've begged to come on the show. We've pleaded to come on the show. We've threatened. No, none of that. We have a very special guest that we're super excited about, and we know is excited to be on this show. So I'm going to let Gooch tell you more about him, and then after the intro here, we'll get on with our show.
Appreciate all you guys for checking in with us. We once again just trying new things out with the intro and the format to the show. But our guest is the only Chief in the North. The only Chief in the North who wears Raider colors for a Chiefs live stream, Seth Keysor. I'm just kidding. Appreciate Seth taking the time. Always check out the Chief in the North newsletter. Subscribe to his Substack. I think they're both the same thing, but it's awesome. I read a lot of stuff in there when I get the opportunity. You guys should check it out. And let's get it.
So like I said, enjoy the show. Now, those of us, I'm not as old as Gooch is, but those of us who are a tad bit older, we all got our start with Chiefs football, talking Chiefs football, socializing around Chiefs football with Arrowhead Pride. And so just kind of, I guess the question is just kind of like your process of developing Sethalytics is what I'm calling it. Your way of breaking down football.
Sure.
You don't use, like, you're not out there necessarily like PFF. You kind of have your own things that you're looking for, that you're using to judge, like you've said in judging offensive linemen in your Orlando articles, that it's not necessarily about a offensive lineman winning, because it doesn't necessarily contribute as much to the play as a loss hurts the play. So just kind of like, how you're approaching all your, when you're looking at different player evaluations, like how do you come to that? Like what's Seth's superpower in approaching evaluations,
I actually have Matt Castle to thank for it. Everyone knows Matt Castle had a good statistical season in 2010. And that's when I was first starting to do just like fan posts and stuff at Arrowhead Pride. And I had never really gotten too deep into football. I didn't play football in high school. I've always liked football, but I didn't know a ton about the game outside of what your standard, big fan of football would know who hadn't played. And so for me, when you see someone go for, I think it was 27-7 or something like that, in touchdowns or interceptions, have a decent number of yards, I was kind of beguiled by that. And people that know more than me were kind enough to tell me that's a facade. That's not Castle. That's, this, and this. And obviously that played out in future years. And during that time when that was happening, I was starting to write a little more often. And I thought to myself, I was a little embarrassed about the fact that I was so easily kind of led astray for something that really was kind of clearly a bit of a facade. And so I really wanted to learn, okay, well, what should one look at if one doesn't look at statistics? And really, if you're talking 2010, it's crazy how far statistical analysis has come since then. The last decade has just been this revolution in analytics, to where now we have stats that actually matter a little more, to where at least they tell you more about what's going on the field. But, then you're looking at total yards per attempt, interceptions, QB rating was considered kind of the stat, even though now we know how flawed that is. So that's kind of what started me down the road of figuring out, okay, what am I really trying to find out when I'm writing about a player? And it started really with quarterbacks, because, again, the Matt Castle dilemma. And so I started thinking to myself, okay, well, what matters with quarterback play? So I would ask people smarter than me who know the game, what matters with quarterback play? We lost Gooch. I knew he couldn't take it. Oh, there he is. And so I would ask people, well, what matters? You'd ask quarterback coaches or people that are involved in the game, and they talk about things like accuracy and pocket presence, going through reads, et cetera, et cetera. And then I just say, okay, if that's what matters, how would I gauge that over time in a way that I can quantify, to where you can kind of combine the film review with quantitative analysis, to where you can really answer the question, how much is something happening? So by the time Alex Smith came to town, which is when it started really, really getting defined, he had all these narratives about him as a player, some of them very true, some of them not so true. And so I would just ask myself, well, what question am I trying to answer? Well, people say, well, Alex Smith is missing wide open receivers constantly down the field. Okay, let's track that. And that's how missed shots became a thing. And just you name anything, he's bailing out of clean pockets. Okay, so happy feet becomes a stat. So really, the secret sauce, I guess, is just I figure out, what am I trying to answer, and what information would I need to answer that question? And then it's just a matter of kind of digging around and playing around with it. And then I have the advantage of having done it for 10 years now, to where I know what questions matter a little more than others.
So what I hear you saying is basically,
I guess,
smarter people than you told you what to look for.
Yes, absolutely. And anyone that tells you otherwise that's had any success in this industry is lying, because no one comes into something like football and I have discovered the thing that matters more than these people that have done it for 60 years. And there's always going to be someone way smarter than you that has figured out what matters and what doesn't. And then it's just figuring out how to turn it into your own process. And I have no ego in saying that everything I know about football, which is barely anything, honestly, there's so much to know about this game, is just on the backs of people who are way smarter than I am. And I just happen to enjoy writing about it.
Yeah, that sounds scary to me. I know that no, it's not a knock against you. It's kind of a, it's like you were where I'm at now, in that, there was a point to where it's like, I have ADHD too much to, I'm just watching the game,
Yeah.
And so for much of my life, I was like a dog, where's the ball? Oh, there's the ball. There's the ball. There's the ball. There's the ball, and it's like, now that I'm getting older and I'm wanting to get into more nuanced things, it's like, there is just so much to learn. And so, but yeah, it's kind of, I guess in a way, it's kind of nice to know that Seth doesn't know everything, but at the same time, for the average fan, we can't go talk to Matt Castle or quarterback coach. Well, I guess we could, but
sure. Well, and honestly, one of the best resources in the world, and people that are plentifully available, are high school coaches. And there's such a, because football, obviously a lot of things change in terms of the ability of the athletes and the detail of everything, but certain things, like the baseline things, like what does a pin pull scheme look like, things like that. Those are things they teach at all levels. Where do you want your hands, what does a good stance look like? And not just high school coaches, but also now there's just so much information available. If you follow just certain people online, you want to learn about offensive line play, well, follow Duke Manyweather and Brandon Thorne and Jeff Schwartz and Mitch Schwartz. And every now and then Mitch Schwartz, will drop a whole thread showing something about pass protection, and you can learn so much through that. That's the cool thing, is there's so much information available that just wasn't a decade ago. But yeah, it is scary because there's so much to learn. And that's such an important thing, I think, for people to understand, is this, you're never going to learn it all. Like, you get guys like Matt Bowen. One of my favorite things about him is he'll be breaking down a play and he'll say, this is what I think the coverage is they're running, but I can't be sure because there's a few variants here and all this stuff. And this is a dude that was known to be an incredibly cerebral NFL player for, a decade. And he's the one saying, I don't know, I think. And that lets you know that it's okay to not know much or everything, because everyone's just doing their best educated guesses.
Yeah, we can't all be Tony Romo. By the way, Gooch, do you know where Matt Bowen went to college at?
Are you going to tell me Iowa?
Correct.
I had to know because that's the only way you'd ask me is if he went to Iowa. Which explains why he's guessing a lot too.
Yeah.
Guessing a lot.
Yeah. If he went to a better school, he'd know.
Back then it was all the Big 12. So really you're just back there running with receivers.
That's actually back when the Big Ten had 10 teams.
Imagine that.
Anyway.
Does Kelce does Kelce reset the market next year?
Probably not. Just given his age, it's really unusual for a guy his age to reset the market, which is kind of. Let me remind myself. You just generally speaking don't see guys that are, because what is he? Right now he's almost 33 years old because he came in as an older pro, he came in after when he was I think he was 22 when he came in, and it'd be really, really unusual for a guy who's 33 about to turn 34 to reset the market. But some of it'll depend on what he does this year. I'm guessing. I'm trying to think. Well, and they've got him signed through 2025. So I'm guessing with him, probably just sticks to it. Yeah, they did that with the extension that they signed. And he's one, so he's an example of kind of an unusual circumstance where he did take, I would say probably a little less than he could have gotten on the open market. But the one advantage that the team had there is they extended him with a year, maybe 2 years left on his deal. They took no chances with that. And that's one advantage of a term that I heard someone use that I really liked earlier today who was talking about this is trust your scouting, trust your coaches, trust your process. If you think this dude can really play, it's kind of like after Mahomes, imagine if they'd let Mahomes' rookie deal play out another 2 years. I don't even want to know what his contract would look like if he signed it right now. Would it be 60 per, 65 per? He'd probably still do something cool with the structure and stuff. But with Kelce, and you can tell if you really want to know what the team thinks in terms of Kelce's status with the team, you can look at what they did with him. As they said, we're locking him down a year early. We're not waiting for him to hit the market. And when you do that and you do it a year or two early, you can usually get away with not quite destroying the market. But what it costs the team is a year or two of cheaper control. So I don't think Kelce, he's set to make pretty substantial money after this year. But obviously every year tight ends are going to break it a bit. But he's set at 14-6, 16-4, and 18-6. So I'm guessing he'll just play that out. And man, wouldn't it be cool if he was playing so well at 36 that we're wondering if he might reset the market again? That'd be amazing.
I'm not going to doubt it.
No, I wouldn't doubt him. The way he wins is something that should age well. He was as good in 2021 as he was in 2020. I think as he naturally slows down a little, he's going to continue to find other ways to win, and it'll be fun to watch. I know, Tony Gonzalez was such a health nut that he really didn't start to slow down until he was like 35, 36. So it'll be interesting when Kelce starts seeing Father Time come for him, as he does for us all. And if he has to start making some changes in workout, eating, all that kind of stuff.
Switching from beer to avocado juice or whatever it is that Tom Brady drinks. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case. He already came out and said that he's concerned with his legacy over money. So I think if he ever came out now and wanted to be the highest paid, he'd look like a huge hypocrite. But I think he also understands that his career is going forward is going to be best with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football and Andy Reid calling the plays, and that at this point it's all about the legacy, because we've talked about it before. You got a lot greater chance of making more money post NFL career than you do in the NFL.
Yeah, especially at a skill position like his. We could always explain why Jamal Charles is the greatest Chiefs running back. I've been told
we can't do that in 7.5 minutes, though.
what we can do is I can explain the case for it, and then I'll have to duck out, and Gooch can try to dunk on me once I'm not here, because that's always the easiest way to dunk on someone. And I fully approve that.
The thing is I'm not going to dunk on you on that. I will agree to that. Running back of all time, player is a bigger thing.
Well, no, not player. I'm curious. I've been trying to think a lot about who the Chiefs' Mount Rushmore would be and that kind of stuff. And the thing is, in terms of great player, that's not the only thing that comes into play. Some of it comes into play legacy, like what you talked about. If it were just purely like who was so unbelievably above and beyond everyone else at their position, Will Shields has to be on the Mount Rushmore. But then when you factor in positional importance and some of those other things, I don't know if he gets there just because you have other guys who kind of have to be there. So that's an interesting topic. The only reason I brought that up is because I heard you say something about Priest, who I love. But I often have Chiefs fans that get upset with me when I say that Jamal Charles is easily the best running back to ever play in Kansas City. And that's not a diss on Priest Holmes. That's like saying, Patrick Mahomes is easily better than Trent Green, right? Or something like that. I'm talking about someone that I view as an all-time great.
Right.
And I just have to bring it up anytime someone gives me an open forum to talk about anything, that Jamal Charles is an all-time great who tragically had terrible luck with injuries.
I don't know how anybody could be angered by that when you consider the fact that he has the NFL record for yards per carry. And if the man hadn't been so humble to ask for himself to be taken out of the game, he would have the single game rushing record.
He would. He would. They had no answer for him that day. It's an interesting thing. The way that I've always framed it with Charles is, if the job of a running back is to move the ball, and you were literally the best ever to do it, I don't know. It kind of makes sense. It would be one thing if he only played like 1 year, but he played multiple years, and that's where people, talk about the small sample size. Hey, Gooch is home.
So is that Mount Rushmore? Is Jamal on
This
your
is
Mount
an empty
Rushmore?
house.
I don't know, just because Mount Rushmore involves so many other things. And with the Mount Rushmore, you got to also have coaches. And I think at this point, can you really have a Chiefs Mount Rushmore without Andy Reid? I don't know. That's tough.
You'd have to carve it on the Grand Canyon.
If you want to be honest, he brought the team. It's one other only Super Bowl. So you've got, what is it? Stram, Andy, Lenny, and DT.
And it's tough. And you can't, I don't know if really even, I think we're already at a point where it's hard to leave Mahomes off that. We are literally in the most successful season of Chiefs history. And it's really not that close over the last 5 years. They've never had this kind of run. And so it's hard to leave Mahomes off it. What do you do with Travis Kelce? Obviously, DT is on there. And so, it's an interesting question with this new era of absolute greatness that is slowly starting to really eclipse the close but not quite teams of the 90s.
But it's really cool, though. It's really cool when you think now. When I first started watching Chiefs football, it was like, okay, so there's Derek Thomas, there's probably Hank Stram, Lenny Dawson, and Emmett Thomas. You know what I'm saying? Now
I thought they were the Dallas Texans when you started watching Gooch.
Now you're like, hey, we got all these guys now. Who do we put on our Rushmore? Like, who are? It's nice to, and think about this, when people retire, we may need a bigger stadium anyway, because Kelce, the Ring of Honor, just the Ring of Honor itself, we're either going to have to shrink names or build a bigger stadium, because
No, for sure. Look, there's a whole lot of guys from that last era and then the one that we're currently in. And there's obviously, all-time greats that probably don't even get considered, like Willie Lanier and Bobby Bell, and like guys that were unbelievable players. Otis Taylor, unbelievable player. But really the Chiefs, with this recent wave, they've kind of like they've hit a point where you've got guys that you have to talk about, and you can't really leave them off. Travis Kelce, I think, is one day going to almost be a necessity on that Mount Rushmore. And who do you bump? I mean, it's a cool thing because, I mean, he's just so unlike anything that's ever happened at the tight end position. I just hope that he can keep it up for like 5 more years so I don't have to hear these stupid longevity arguments because they drive me crazy.
Right.
Look, in my eyes, I think first and third all time tight ends are Chiefs. That's what I think. I think it's Tony, Gronk, Kelce.
There's a lot of debate about what order to put those guys in, and I think almost any position you have is defensible, and that's what happens. When you get to, it's like
I think Tony changed the game. There weren't any. Tony is the reason for Antonio Gates and all these guys, because before Tony there was no receiver like tight end built like him that played basketball and had soft hands. And then I think Gronk showed what you could do when you're like one of the fiercest blockers on the planet at 6'8",
Right.
and can still find a way to get open and have cornerback speed before they start taking out his knees. And then
I think this is I think this is a discussion for when Seth comes back to join us on another episode that we can give the full time to it. Seth, we have 30 seconds here. Can you tell us who's the greatest Chiefs fullback that's ever played? This one's for Ryan. Who's the best Chief fullback of all time?
Oh man, would he say someone besides T-Rich? Like, what is this like? I mean, it's obviously Richardson. Like, I mean, he doesn't argue that.
I was gonna say, if he says anybody other than T-Rich, I'm unsubscribed.
I'm just asking your opinion.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely Tony Richardson. I mean,
Seth, let me go to another one really quick. Best blocking tight end in Chiefs history.
Oh, there he goes.
All right, what was it? I missed you for a quick second. Is the best tight end or the best blocking tight end in Chiefs history?
Who's the best blocking tight end?
Best blocking tight end in Chiefs history.
That's easy. That's Jason Dunn. And
yes,
it just so happened his existence and Richardson's existence in combined with that offensive line being insane is why the 2003 Chiefs was the best run blocking group ever assembled, because it wasn't just the line. You also had one of the best blocking fullbacks to ever live. 1,000-yard rushers followed Richardson around. He went to Minnesota. Same thing happened for multiple years because he was so great at it. But you also had Dunn, who really was about as close as I've seen, besides like a Gronk, to having another tackle line up and just maul dudes. It was great. Well, if you get a chance to tell him it was a privilege watching him play, please do, because he was so much fun to watch play. And guys that play the game like him don't get enough credit. And so it's a really cool thing to watch him carve out a career doing well. I appreciate you guys. And hopefully, we'll find time to pop back on some other time. All right.
Absolutely. Thanks, Seth. We appreciate everybody that watches this content, whether religiously or in passing. We appreciate Seth for hanging with us today. It was really fun. It was a blast. I loved it, even though I didn't have to bribe him a little bit. No, I'm kidding. Check out the RGR store. Check out the live streams on Monday. Definitely check out Chief in North on Thursday. Again, check out his Substack. It is a good read. I've read a lot of stuff in there that to be honest, I subscribed to it, but I had no interest in reading it. But I found a few things that I liked. So then I went back and read some other stuff. It's really good content. Jaden's jerseys, still doing that. Check him out. Really good prices on jerseys. We always want to support one of our own. So definitely get out and support him. Big Chief, Sean has his own show. Check that out. I've got a little giveaway going on for 750 and 1,000 subscribers. We're trying to push Sean on that. If you want to know what the giveaway is, you're going to have to watch the Big Chief Sean show. Completely different thing that me and Keys were allowed to be on. So we're doing a thing with him. Don't forget to tell somebody you love them, because tomorrow's not promised. We'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks a lot, guys. Peace out.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.